Hi, folks. Thanks for joining me again today. This is the second in the series on the books by Matt Franke called the Beast series. 4 books. Check them out. They're on Q Press and very easy to access. I'm going to play long tone ear training exercise number 2. And like many of Mr. Franke's exercises, I think this is very straightforward and very challenging in the sense that all you're doing is listening for a pure interval. Well, that's not all you're doing. We'll get into that in a second. But hearing the interval as it actually is in tune is really, really important. Getting the intervals so that you can taste the interval. You know, with especially the smaller intervals. Fourths and fifths, octaves, usually a little bit easier to hear. Some of the closer intervals, minor second, minor third, major third, more difficult to hear, as any of you who've been working on your craft already know. So that being said, let me go ahead and play a little bit. And then I'm going to give you a lot of what I do in terms of variations. So if I play them as they're marked, let me grab my tuner here. Okay. So it says 60. I'm somebody who likes to go fast. So when an exercise says 60, I go like, oh, slow. Of course, it's a long tone. So you're going to be going slow. So let's do it like it says to do it. That'll keep me in place. Okay, let's take a break from the metronome. I find that the biggest problem that I have is staying engaged because I'm doing something that's, I think, is very easy. So I need to increase my intention. In other words, do something on purpose. And what I actually start with is music. I think this helps me more than anything else. When you're working on something complicated, something that's fun, a tune that you really like, you're doing challenging improvisation, you're doing physically challenging, maybe very rapid, quick movements on the instrument, then it's easy to stay engaged. It's kind of like you're putting yourself at risk. The mind is more stimulated, and it's not hard to stay engaged. But when you're playing a long tone like this, it's easy to go to sleep. You shouldn't go to sleep. Well, actually, you, the audience, may go to sleep because it's pretty boring to listen to me play long tones unless you're actually listening closely. In which case you might have heard, I certainly felt it, that I was pretty relaxed at the beginning and then I started getting tighter as I went along. Partly, I wasn't doing something intentional. I was just playing it automatically. And that's the worst thing you can do when you practice. So, what do I mean musical? Well, I could mean a lot of things, and I'll touch on a few of them, just variations, things you can do that make it more interesting. A way of thinking about this is I'm going to play it as if the whole orchestra stopped or the whole band stopped, and I'm the last one left playing, and it's a solo. what am I saying? What am I conveying? So I have to put myself in a scenario. Yeah, what is the attitude that I'm bringing? I'm not just playing notes. I'm not just trying to play the interval in tune. I'm not just trying to keep my air flowing evenly. All those are great things. We need to work on those things. But it helps me so much if I'm doing something intentional musically. So let's see. I have to come up with something. Okay, the next interval is a fourth, I think. So that has a certain flavor to it, and there's certain things associated with it. I won't go into details. I don't want this to be a musicological, lecture. That's not what you're here for. Let me go ahead and try this. To be honest, I wasn't really convinced, and my mind started wandering again. I need to have a picture. I need to have a context. So maybe hearing this in harmony would help. Now, something that many of you do, and it's a great way to practice, is put a drone on. Now, I'm not going to do that because it's really annoying, although I have a good stereo system with great speakers, and I could put a drone on, but when you play the tuner through there, it sounds really annoying. There's some good drones on the internet which you can find. There are some cello drones out there, which many of you may be familiar with. What's the point? If you're playing with an actual instrument, like a cello, then what you're doing is you're hearing the qualities of the colors within the sound. You're not just matching pitch. And you're actually playing with a person who is being recorded instead of an electronically produced sine wave, which doesn't have any character to it. So if you play with a drone, it's great to play with a real sound. A quick way to do that, and I haven't seen Adam Rappa for a long time, but he stopped in many years ago because he was curious about GR mouthpieces at the time. So I did a consultation with him, and in the course of that, he mentioned about playing with a drone, and he said, yeah, when I practice that way, what I do is I tape down the keyboard, a key on my synthesizer. So that way, if you have a sampling synthesizer, yes, it's digital, yes, but it's a recording. So you could have a trumpet sound. Oh, that would be a good idea. A trumpet sound where you can actually play along with another trumpet. And then you change it to other instruments and see how you can match with the sounds. Now, I realize many of you don't have time for that. But if you do have time, spend a few minutes just exploring that, and you will stimulate your mind. Now you're not playing alone, in a room by yourself, as I'm doing right now. You're playing with someone else, and that's really, really helpful to do that. Okay, now I'm going to play the Devil's Interval, the augmented fourth. See, there's something else you can do. I was pretending I was playing in a brass quintet, for example. And I was playing the lead part. And I have to show, when I'm sustaining that long note, I have to show everybody else where I'm going. So I'm conducting. That's a great thing to do when you're doing long tones. Now, you don't have to wave the horn all around. All you're doing is you're showing your sense of 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're always moving forward, and you have a sense of where you are on the bar. Try it in different meters. You see, this is the kind of thing you need to explore in order to keep your mind awake when you're playing long tones. What more can I say? I mean, it's helping me right now. That was way better. Now let's see, what's on the next page? Could it be a perfect fifth? Yeah, that's it. All right, now what's something else I can do? I'm going to go through a bunch of things and just demonstrate them for you, and I want you to try each of these. So, make a note for yourself, or know where the time is on the video, so you can check this out and then practice it for yourself. That's the only way you're going to get enjoyment out of it. This is not theoretical. You got to do it. So, I'm going to play the perfect fifth, and this time I'm going to play it with vibrato. I'm not thinking a particular style. I'm just going to let my natural vibrato come in. that was pretty subtle. That's what you want to experiment with. Now, what if you were doing, let's say, Harry James? I'm not used to that. I'm going to have to practice that. So what I'm doing is I'm experimenting with the taste, the stylistic taste of the vibrato. Keep your ears open. How about British brass band vibrato? That gives you something to focus on. Let's see, what else? Oh, this is something I do all the time. Now I'm going to go back to the beginning because I don't want to be turning pages too much. But I had tonguing. And I need to work on tonguing a lot. I'm not particularly good at it. So I can be working on any aspect of tonguing. And now what am I doing? I've got my long tone there. It's in tune. I'm feeling the time. I'm doing a musical gesture. It has some kind of meaning. And so I'm not concentrating on any of that. Now I'm just concentrating on the qualities of the articulation. And I particularly like to use K articulation. So that's a whole focus that I could have. Now, you can't do these things all at once. You have to do them one at a time and put the other skills that you've just been practicing and have gotten loose and balanced and able to, they're spinning on their own. You don't need to consciously control them. Then add these things in. Another thing I find very helpful, especially for playing in the orchestra, is changing dynamics. Now, let's say I'm going to do something which I normally don't do. I'm going to play very loud. It'll probably clip, but I hope you can get the idea. And what am I emulating? Well, in the orchestra, sometimes we have to play at ungodly loud dynamic levels. And this has become more and more common in the modern orchestra ever since the Chicago Symphony under Schulte. The dynamic levels have been being pushed more and more. And there is a limit to human capability, and we're looking for it. So what's the goal here? Keep the quality of sound. I like to think triple forte dolce. Now I'm going to have trouble doing this because now I'm playing in the low register. Wow, that's pushing the edges. Let's try that again. That's a very important thing to do because you play them always at mezzo forte, mezzo piano, and you don't have the same feeling. You need to give your body more information. What's it like to do those slurs, especially the wider slurs, when you're really, really producing a lot of power on the instrument? Another thing I'll do is create dynamic agility. So that was pushing my skills a little bit. I'm kind of rough with the breath control. So I'll go back, maybe do something easier, maybe wait a little bit longer before I make my shift until I feel like everything is stable. These are just sensible ways of practicing. You see how it's not just playing long tones anymore? So you're trying to play louder and softer without losing focus and without losing the touch. Now that's high level skill. If you never do it, you're never going to figure out how to do it. So go do it right now. If you're bored, go do something constructive. What else might you do? Obviously the sound quality. Especially when you're changing dynamics, can you keep the sound quality? Can you change the sound quality as you would your voice, as the way an opera singer would change their voice? And what about things like agility with the dynamics, as I just talked about, or agility with the actual change? So we've been playing a long tone. You have plenty of time to hear the interval and coming down the road, so to speak, and then you make your change. I'm going to go a little bit higher and then show you how I might change the time. Now, to be honest with you, in order to keep my skills alive, I might be doing all these kinds of things very, very quickly as I go through and play the long tones. Not always, but it's a way of practicing I found to be incredibly effective, very powerful. But it's based on having the skills already. As soon as I try a new skill, if it upsets the skills that I'm building, then I'm not practicing effectively anymore. So make sure you stay in the zone of control and enjoyment and step forward one step at a time. Do the variety thing, but as soon as you're fighting, stop. That's my number one rule for practice. Stop, reorient yourself, decide what your intention is, play, then adjudicate yourself and say, well, did I hit the target? Did I hit my target that I was working on? So that quick change is very important to me, and I do a lot of that kind of work. Now, I'm including this in playing long tones. And of course, you could play separate exercises that will accomplish the same thing. But if I'm in a hurry, I'm going to put as many things into one simple exercise as I can in order to get loose, develop that sense of quickness and skill and agility in terms of dynamics, in terms of articulation, in terms of movement over the intervals, working with the quality of the sound. I'm going to be doing that very, very rapidly. And I've been in many situations where I didn't have time to warm up at all. And then you're kind of doing it on the fly, which is fine, but you have to have the skills to begin with. So I would say when you're doing this for most people, when you're doing these long tones, build the skill. Build the skill of breath control, the skill of playing a musical line, build the skill of just stability in the sound. Those are the main things. Those are the main things. If you want to get really fancy, then you might try and work on circular breathing. Now, I also do that. I'm not going to do that for you today. That's a different subject. But it's something that I sometimes remember to throw into my playing, especially when I'm playing extended things. So if I'm going to run out of breath anyway without ending the pattern, I will practice circular breathing. Now, that's a separate, and some people would say an advanced technique. But I know players who can do it quite well. For example, Mr. Nakaryakov, I think he's quite good at it, if you've ever watched any of his videos. So that should give you some targets to aim at. Don't confuse yourself. Even write things down and say, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this for 10 minutes. And then see how well your concentration holds up when you're working. All right, that's probably more than enough for today. But I'm trying to give you some insight into effective ways of practice when you're doing these sometimes simple exercises. So go practice, enjoy the process, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.